inflation is the enemy that we need to
But
conquer.
interest
That's
rates
why
going up are also an enemy for many people watching this.
Interest rates are a consequence of high inflation. And I think we should be very clear about what is doing damage to people, what is causing people challenges in their day-to-day living and their budgeting is inflation. And it's inflation that needs to be the priority for the government to stamp out, and I'm prepared to do that. And again, that's why it's my number one priority, so people can have some confidence in it. But also, I was one of the first politicians to start talking about the dangers of inflation.
So you are prepared to see rates continue to rise in order to squeeze inflation. That's what you're saying. But do you admit that that is going to hurt for a lot of people? We're inundated with emails saying their mortgage is going to double. We're inundated with people saying that they can't afford their rent. We're inundated with emails from people saying they're just not going to be able to afford it on top of everything else that's gone up.
Just this week, the Chancellor sat down with the banks to put in place a series of measures that people can draw on. Now, we have the welfare system. There's a support for mortgage interest scheme for people who are particularly vulnerable. But for others, they can now talk to their bank. They can request an extension to their mortgage or a switch to an interest-only mortgage. None of that will have an impact on their credit rating, and it will save them potentially hundreds of pounds a month on their mortgage payments.
Rates have already been going up. Core inflation is not coming down. And the wealthy who've already paid their houses off are going to see interest rates go up on their savings pot. And ordinary families who think they've done the right thing, they've saved, they've managed to get onto the property ladder, they're the people that are going to suffer here. Isn't there an alternative, or is it your belief that there is no alternative to this?
No, there isn't an alternative to stamping out inflation,
and that does require to putting up interest rates.
That is one component of what we need to do to tackle inflation. That's what the Bank of England's responsibility is. And it's right that you asked me. My responsibility is also there, and that's to manage the government's borrowing responsibly. Because if I make the wrong decisions, if we end up borrowing too much money, and we talked about public sector pay earlier being a good example of that. If I make the wrong decisions, borrow too much money, that will put further fuel on the fire of the inflation challenge and will just mean inflation is going to be here for longer, be worse, and interest rates will be higher for longer.